Today's top stories at NBR. Warehouse Group looks at playing bigger role in supermarket sector. Zero trust essential for businesses to protect against cybercrime. Spark takes stake in wireless environmental monitoring company, and there's more coming right up. Kia ora and welcome to NBR Today, 100% subscriber funded and proudly brought to you by you, as is every story at nbr.co.nz. It's Tuesday, March 22nd. I'm Paul Brennan. Thanks again for joining us. The government has defended how long it has taken to introduce legislation changing the rules around beneficial ownership of companies, having widely consulted on the issue back nearly 4 years ago. The government said today, Tuesday, it would introduce legislation later this year, changing the rules around beneficial owners to make it easier to see who owns or controls a company. Joining NBR political editor Brent Edwards was Commerce and Consumer Affairs Minister David Clark.
So we'll be putting up an exposure draft of the bill probably around June this year. And we'll be consulting on things like the transition period. You know, how long should businesses have to comply with the new laws and regulations that will be coming into force?
Commerce and Consumer Affairs Minister David Clark with Brent Edwards there. The boss of the Warehouse Group says the company was pleased the Commerce Commission has recognised competition isn't working in the supermarket sector, and the NZX-listed retailer is looking forward to playing a bigger role in it. The group, which owns The Warehouse, Warehouse Stationery, Noel Leeming, Torpedo 7 and TheMarket.com, Tuesday released its 6-month financial results ending January 30th, 2022, showing that record second quarter sales were not enough to save it from the impacts of COVID-19 restrictions. Total revenue of $1.73 billion was down 4% from $1.81 billion during the previous corresponding period, as the company struggled with store closures during the first quarter, with its Auckland outlets closed for nearly half of the first 6 months of the financial year. The Warehouse Group Chief Executive Nick Grayston said this month's ComCom report on the grocery sector had some good stuff in it, but would wait for the government's next move. The Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment has confirmed it's still investigating 6,474 cases to see whether any of them should pay for their time in managed isolation and quarantine MIQ. MIQ has now come to an end, but MB still does not know exactly how many people it still has to invoice for using the system. In response to an Official Information Act request, which MB required before answering the question, it said there were 6,474 unmatched records in the database for the period from March 25th last year to February 28th this year that still need to be assessed. Ingrid Harder, Director of the Office of the Deputy Secretary MIQ, said MB expected a proportion of those cases would not require invoices to be sent. Employing a zero-trust approach may be an anathema to Kiwis' traditionally trusting nature, but it's essential if New Zealand businesses are to protect themselves against a rising tide of cybercrime in the Asia-Pacific region. Cybersecurity threats are constantly evolving and can only be truly protected against with a proactive and strategic mindset, according to global tech company and security specialist IBM's APAC Division Security Chief Technology Officer Chris Hocking. The company's latest X-Force Threat Intelligence report is full of examples of quickly developing threats, including ransomware, gangs re-emerging after being shut down, phishing scammers using voice calls and what's now being called vishing, and the observation that the manufacturing sector is being harder hit by cybercrime than financial services for the first time in years. A family-owned food and hazardous goods storage and transport business is investing about $20 million in a new storage facility after the company doubled in size over the past 5 years. Auckland-headquartered Chemfreight was established in 1989 and claims it was the country's first specialist third-party logistics 3PL provider of hazardous storage solely for packaged goods. The low-profile business was founded by Harry Price in the wake of the 1987 stock market crash and has since grown to 7 sites across Auckland and Christchurch. The business is 100% family-owned and managed and operates in a niche but growing market where it competes against the likes of dual-listed DGL Group founded by NBR lister Simon Henry. Spark has taken an almost 38% holding in an Auckland-based IoT, Internet of Things company focused on real-time wireless environmental monitoring using high-end sensors. The cost of Spark's holding in Auckland's Adroit Holdings has not been announced, but was not significant enough in dollar terms to announce to the share market. 2 Spark-nominated directors will eventually be nominated to the Adroit board. The partnership is aiming to capture more of the market in environmental monitoring and solutions, driven by new legislation, including the Freshwater Management Act, as well as the country's climate commitments. Spark and Adroit have already worked together on projects, including Mercury NZ's real-time water quality monitoring solution for its Waikato River catchment. The full details of those stories and more are at nbr.co.nz right now. Tomorrow at NBR, columnist Bridget Morton takes a look at what the looming Tauranga by-election could mean for Labour. And there's a look at how a community housing provider is adapting to a predicted market downturn over the next 12 months. I'm Paul Brennan. Join me again from around lunchtime tomorrow for the morning's NBR Trending Stories, then same time from 5:30 tomorrow right here for another NBR Today.